Joining me is the panel, Michael Kroger, former Victorian Liberal President, and Graham Richardson, former Labor Cabinet Minister. Now, Michael, Labor plans to put this Aboriginal-only parliament called The Voice to a vote in a referendum before the next election. Huge poll support right now. Will they win?
I don't think so. I don't believe that poll, by the way. I don't think it's indicative of much. It's a bit like asking people whether you like a tax cut. Of course you can get 64% of people say yes, but once people see the details, I think there's going to be a large number of people who are going to say no. I mean, Linda Burney says The Voice is only going to be consulted on matters which directly affect the Aboriginal community. Well, what doesn't affect the Aboriginal community? Does health policy? Yes. Does education? Yes. Does taxation? Yes. She said childcare affected them, so that was something that they were going to have to be consulted on. Well, if childcare is included, Andrew, everything's included. So as long as people understand that, and I agree with your proposition, we overwhelmingly should not be dividing this country by race, and this voice should be voted down, and voted down heavily, I hope.
Graham, do you agree with Michael?
I'm not actually sure. I'm yet to come down too hard on either side of this argument, but I'm uncomfortable with some of the language that's being used when it comes to providing the voice. I'm supposed to be a great supporter because I'm in the Labor Party, but I'm very worried about it, Andrew. I think this is a really big step, and I don't think you should take big steps quickly like this. I think there needs to be a lot more community discussion and debate before we go anywhere near making a decision on this.
Well, Graham, can Michael, I just say, Andrew, can I just interrupt there? Graham,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I remember seeing you, Graham, if I'm not mistaken, when you were Aboriginal Affairs Minister on 60 Minutes, more than 30 years ago, and you were doing what should have been done, which is you went into the communities to talk about how the Hawke government could help people with education, health, jobs, violence, etc., getting rid of alcoholism. I remember that, unless I'm mistaken, because it was 30 years ago. But that's what you were doing on that 60 Minutes program, and that's what governments, Liberal, Labor, should be concentrating on. The kind of things that Noel Pearson talks about, that Jacinta Price, that the other Aboriginal leaders, Warren Mundine, talk about. Not this diversion, quite frankly.
I don't disagree with that. I think we're making far too much of this. I mean, if it's still the case that there are open sewers running through Aboriginal communities, and it is, then I think what we're talking about now is a 10th order issue. It's a feel-good issue. It's not an issue that'll actually help any Aboriginal bloke out in the bush living poorly.
But Graham, I actually think it's a displacement factor, because those things you're talking about that you were dealing with decades ago, they are almost intractable problems while you have communities sitting out in the bush highly dependent on welfare. And so this is much easier. We can just pass something in the Constitution, good job done, jobs for the boys, and away we go. But Michael Kroger, Graham said, this needed a debate. You can't have a debate if you don't have a Liberal Party, for instance, asking the questions. Most people are refusing to get in the debate because they're scared of being called racist. Companies are refusing to back a no case because they don't want their business destroyed. Why have the Liberals not even begun to fight, which for them must be the, totally on their fundamental principles, the individual above the tribe?
Well, I remember when I was first at uni in the mid to late 1970s, a member of the left said to me once, mate, if you don't fight, you lose. And what the left have done since they took over the universities in the 60s, they've gone through the public service, now they've taken over the business community effectively. Unless you're prepared to fight for issues, you will not win. You will be a footnote in history, and a forgotten footnote in history. So, the left are always prepared to argue their case, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's global warming, whether it's the Voice, whether it's the Republic. They start these arguments, they can rage for 5, 10, 20, 30 years or more against nuclear power, etc., etc. There's dozens of the campaigns they're running. So unless the coalition has some ideas of their own, unless they're prepared to have courage, they're just going to keep losing elections. because people need to know that their best days are ahead of them. And if all you can do is retreat to your lounge and sit on a chair and hide and not be prepared to get involved in the argument, you'll keep losing. As I said a couple of weeks ago, people want political leaders who've got courage, and courage means the courage to make enemies. And the great political leaders are those people who are prepared to make enemies, because politics is about the battle of ideas. If you don't join the battle, if you don't have the courage, you will lose, Andrew.
Graham, it's been a long time since the Liberals seem to show that kind of courage, isn't it?
Yeah, a long time. I think, one of the problems that the Liberal Party's had in recent years is that it hasn't known what it is. It hasn't known what things to grab hold of and pursue and what things to jettison. And so I think it's been all over the shop in recent years. And I think, these things are cyclical. Parties go through good times and bad times. But these are bad times for the Liberals, and they don't seem to me to have any sort of plan for how they're going to get out of it. No. If you look around, mate, leadership's in very short supply in the Liberal Party.
Yes, it seems to me they're following polls, but the polls will just tell you who's winning an argument. If you haven't put your argument, you'll never win, and you'll always be following the other side. Michael, the stock market fell another 1.3% today. Petrol prices, they're going to go up by around 25 cents a litre from Wednesday when the petrol excise cut then ends. Here's Labor focusing on Aboriginal-only Parliament, focusing on global warming policies instead of cost of living issues. When do you think it's actually going to get to work on making life easier for ordinary Australians?
Well, they'll have to sooner or later. I know Graham will disagree with me on this point, but I see Albanese in an economic sense very much like Whitlam. He has no interest in economics at all. He remember the last time he spoke about it was probably the question about the unemployment rate. But he doesn't show any interest in economics, and that was Whitlam's great problem in between 72 and 75. Jim Chalmers is a commentator. Jim's always out there telling us how bad things are and how much worse they're going to get. Neither he or Albanese seem to have any answers whatsoever. So this budget he's going to have next month, Andrew, will have to have some hard policy decisions. Some enemies are going to have to be made because the economy is, their budget's in a shocking position. The debt levels are at record highs. And of course, the Australian economy is going south and will probably hit a recession next year. So they have to get back focused on it, because they're going to slip in support in the polls next year if they're seen to have lost control of the economy and have a leader and a treasurer who don't seem to be up to the task.
Well, I think Graham, big call that this government resembles Whitlam more than Hawke. You were part of a Hawke government that set the Labor standard. How do you see it?
I think, I think Michael's very good at this sort of thing. I definitely think you're one of the best at it, Michael. But it doesn't change the fact that you're sprouting nonsense. The idea that someone like our treasurer is just a spectator is nonsense. Chalmers is very, very much more than that. Albo, of course, has a degree in economics. He knows what he's talking about when he gets onto it. These people aren't stupid. And they know that unless that they do something about the cost of living, they don't get re-elected. So it's not only trying to do the right thing. Sometimes it's in your own interest to get out there and have a crack. And I think that's what they are doing and will continue to do.
Yeah, well, they've been in power for 4 months. I haven't seen anything that's effective in terms of trying to make life easier for people. It's just been
4 months.
A lot of things for show.
4 months, exactly.
Well, we'll see. No, well, 4 months, come on, 4 months is still 4 months. That's a third of a year already. And what is it, a fair percentage of time that it's let slide under. It came to power with a plan. They were Albanese. How often did you see? I've got a plan. Instead, we haven't got plans. We've got talk shops to try and find one. I mean, come on, Graham. I think they need to be held to some sort of standard here. But Graham Richardson, Michael Kroger, thank you both so much for your time.